Hello and welcome back to the Grandmaster division of the Intermezzo Championship. In my first game I was able to win against PV4 and Tamurus, and now I'm playing against Pajada and again against PV4. And first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that in H3 there is Bill Gates, Sid Meier and Marie Curie, so some lab synergy, also Steve Jobs. Also the space flight, we have Gandhi there, Churchill, which is important for the military, we have Pierre, also together with the internet, the Red Cross is there, but no Hollywood, also no theater leader in H3. Then there is the Suez Cannon H2, but no James Cook. There is the Transcontinental Railroad with James Watt, there's Maria, there's no ocean liner service, there are a bunch of culture leaders, there's Bach, Shakespeare and Darwin, and also Newton and Nobel for a good economy and maybe for a good science setup for the H3 science leaders. Then H1 we have Joan of Arc, Genghis Khan, Nostradamus, we have Saladin and Isabella as very solid leaders, and then Gutenberg and Michelangelo. And we have no Magic Cast, but we have the Great Wall, we have no St. Peter's Basilica, but the Forbidden City, and then Machu Picchu is there, and the Silk Road. I'm in the first position, and I think I have to take a wonder here, or at least I think that's what is best for me. Because there are a bunch of leaders that are coming down the row, and when I pick a wonder, then it should be secured that I also will get a leader. There's one argument though to maybe take Confucius, and that is that Payada has a very strong first pick now. He can go for Confucius in the Roman roads, so you could also think about grabbing Confucius, but then I don't know which wonder I will get. I could maybe wait for an H1 wonder, maybe with the Science of Confucius I can go for an early technology and something like early iron, but yeah. I just didn't felt too great, and also when I do this, then Payada can only take a wonder and a yellow card maybe, and then PV4 would get Clio either together with the Rome Roads in the library, so well that would make Payada's first pick quite a bunch weaker. It also would make PV4's pick probably stronger, so I think it should not weaken my own turn just to do this. And then of course also the big question was whether I want to go for the library or the Rome Roads. Both are very strong wonders. I think not so long ago I maybe would have gone for Rome Roads, but my current feeling is that the library is maybe a little bit stronger, and also Confucius and Clio might be taken, then there will be Moses left. Boudica might stay on 2 civil actions, and I think with Moses I rather want to have 1 civil action more, and so that's also one more reason for the library. Then Payada goes for Confucius in the Rome Road, so a very strong start for him. And PV4 goes for Cleopatra and the Hanging Gardens. There are 2 rich lands coming down the row, meaning that he can go for lab at the next turn, grab a rich land, and then build a mine and a stage at the turn after that. I can go for Moses this turn. I could also grab Boudica for 2 civil actions. Both all of my opponents already have a leader, so I hopefully would be maybe be able to get to choose from her bonuses. But yeah, I also would have to take her for 1 additional civil action, and I don't think that is worth it. So just go for Moses, build a mine, and increase my population. Then I draw a colonization card and a heavy cavalry. Payada goes for Confucius, builds a mine, and then goes for Engineering Genius. So 2 civil actions, he doesn't want to increase his population, and then maybe just take something like Frugality or Rich Land. And the Engineering Genius allows him to finish the Rome Roads. On the other hand, he has no free population and wants to seed with Confucius. No. And then PV4 goes for Clio, builds a lab, increases population, and then can grab this rich land so that he has enough resources for mine and 1 step at the next turn. At my turn I can build a lab. I could also wait with building the labs, start with the library, but I wanted to take this Code of Laws for 2 civil actions here. And when I go for a lab now, I will have 4 science at the next turn and then 6 science at the turn after that, meaning that I can go for sure, even without developments for Code of Laws in 2 turns. And I could also maybe not go for Code of Laws, do something else, but the question is, first of all, what do I want to do else? I can maybe increase my population twice, but then there are only two not so strangler cards available. I could maybe corrupt the Urban Growth, and because maybe I can hope to get Code of Laws for 1 at the next turn, pajada will maybe want to finish the Rome Roads. On the other hand, if he goes for Lab at the next turn, then thanks to the additional signs from Confuse, he could go for a Code of Laws immediately at the turn after that, so he maybe would maybe it would not finish the Rome Roads at this turn, and then grab the Code of Laws for 2, and then PV4 also definitely could grab the Code of Laws for 2, so I thought I just grabbed the Code of Laws for 2 after increasing my population. And then I draw another colonization card and also the Good Harvest, so now I also have an event that I can push. Pajada Seeds and the Development of Settlement is opened. He indeed doesn't finish the Rome Roads, instead builds a lab, grabs the Code of Laws for 2, and then uses the Engineering Genius in the Rome Roads. Doesn't go into consumption yet, and at the next turn he can finish the Rome Roads and still has 1 free civil action. PV4 Seeds and the Development of Trade Routes are opened. PV4 builds a mine, builds 1 step, takes Isabella, elects her, and then increases population. Doesn't want to have Cleo anymore. I mean, Isabella is probably a solid solution because now he has the 1 additional resource for sure, while maybe if there's no fitting lead available or no nice wonder, then he maybe can't really use Cleo that easily. So he wants to switch to Isabella, and there's also a Suez Canal maybe already seated 1 colony in, so that of course could also be a reason to go for Isabella already. Maybe he also wants to deny her, because I have Moses, could be quite nice for me to just increase my population 2 times more and then switch to Isabella, so maybe that was also part of the reason to go for Isabella. I don't push the event this turn, because it could cause some problems for me, and I have the heavy cavalry in hand, so I was definitely eyeing Genghis Khan here. The question is if I do have to grab him for 2 this turn, and I came to the conclusion that I don't really have to do this. I can take the swordsman and I can build 1 stage on the library. Pajada probably wants to finish the Rome Roads, and even if he does this, he still isn't out of corruption, meaning that it is very likely that he won't take any cards at all, and then Genghis Khan won't be on the discard spot on PV4's turn. PV4 already has Isabella, so I thought it should be quite likely that Genghis Khan will be available for me at the next turn. I can take him for 1 at the next turn, and then it's also very nice to get those swordsmen for 1, because if I should get Genghis Khan and with the swordsman I should have a nice strength solution. I get a military technology for 1 civil action, and at the next turn my plan was then to finish the library and to go for Genghis Khan. One card that I also kinda like to take was maybe the Bread and Circuses. There is Pierre. I have a bunch of population, especially when I will lose the 2 yellow tokens. I definitely would like to have a happy face solution. Could also help me to go even more heavily into military with Genghis Khan. But there's also this copy of Bread and Circuses. As I said, pajada probably won't take any cards. PV4 is the Hanging Garden, so I also thought that it should be quite likely that I might be able to get this copy of Bread and Circuses, and then I could, for example, just finish the library and take those 2 cards at the next turn. I discard 1 of the colonization cards so that I can keep the heavy cavalry. If I reveal it now, maybe then one of my opponents would make sure that I don't get a Genghis Khan, or maybe pajada would even go for him himself. So I didn't want to reveal the tactic yet, so I have to keep it in hand. Pajada develops the Code of Laws. Interestingly, he doesn't see it, so maybe he has only cards in hand that he really doesn't want to see it, or he was afraid of corruption, because if he increases population now, he doesn't have enough resource to get to build a warrior. So if there's something like development of agriculture, it could lead to corruption. But I think if he has a nice card to seed, he probably would still seed, so probably he doesn't have anything that he wants to push. PV4 goes for irrigation, develops it and upgrades it 2 times, gets some production going. With the additional happy phase of the Hanging Gardens, you should be able to use those additional population from the irrigation quite nicely. But he also will have quite a bunch of foods, so it will be interesting to see if he can make use of all of those population that he will have. Then I can go for the Code of Laws this turn, Genghis Khan and the Bread and Circus are both available for me. Of course, I could think about keeping Moses one more turn, but I think it doesn't really make sense, because when I increase my population at the next turn, when I would increase for 2 with Moses, I would go into 0 food production, and I also can just wait one more turn and then increase it for 3. Doesn't change anything, and I also don't really need a worker already at the next turn, so I don't think there's any reason to keep Moses. And I just want to start producing through culture with Genghis Khan, and soon I might have this heavy cavalry up and running, and then I maybe can go for some military pressure. And then I can finish the library, and I can also take the bread and circuses, and like this, preparing for Pierre, preparing for Darwin, and also having a happy face solution for all of this population, especially when I will lose the 2 yellow tokens. It will be very nice to have the bread and circuses in hand. Then I draw the rebellion and the enslave. Of course, one thing I thought about is whether I want to reveal the heavy cavalry or not. Because if I don't reveal it, and I did not reveal it, then I can't go for 2 warriors or maybe even 2 swordsmen if there are some resource revealed from the developments and reveal the tactic. And then of course I could put some pressure on, but I also would lose 1 military action, and so I didn't reveal it, but now I don't have this option. I have now an aggression in hand, and we will see the next turns that it might be quite nice being able to reveal the tactic already, but if I would have revealed it, I also wouldn't have drawn this aggression, so at the end it maybe was the right decision to keep it in hand. Pajada opens the development of religion. I was not too happy to see this, because with having the Bread and Circuses in hand, I would have preferred to not get a free religion, but of course now that I get it, I also don't want to miss out on it. Pajada goes for Saladin, increases population 2 times, builds a warrior, and then grabs the warfare and the drama. There is Bach in the game, so having the drama is definitely not bad, and the warfare also might be nice for the defense. Then you can use Saladin, has now 6 civil actions already. BV4 seeds, and the development of crafts is opened. He takes the masonry, develops it, and then finishes the hanging gardens. And with this last civil action here, he first of all builds a warrior, do not be weakest, reveals the fighting ban, increases the population, instead of taking the breakthrough, and he is now relatively low in science, so it's a little bit dangerous going for the masonry. On the other hand, with the additional population and the happy faces from the hanging gardens, maybe his plan is to go for some cheap urban buildings, for example the sprinting press. There are a bunch of culture leaders in H2, so he would be nicely set up for that. But he, instead of the masonry, maybe could have taken breakthrough, and I'm not sure if this would maybe be the better solution. On the other hand, the masonry might do quite a lot of work, and so it also is definitely not bad. My turn. I see the rebellion in. I won't go for bread and circuses yet, but I will get a free religion, which will solve my happy faces for the short time for the rebellion, so I will be prepared for that. The other players are kinda also prepared for it, but I wanted the deck to switch, because from now on I will get quite a bunch of strength. It will already get stronger this turn, and at the next turn I also will have enough military actions to finally reveal the tactic. So I wanted the deck to be flipped already. The development of planning is opened, and the options for that are development of market, civil life, and politics. I took the development of civil life and developed a swordsman with it, and I can build 1 swordsman, 2 swordsmen. And now sadly I can't reveal the tactic. It would be very nice. Then I would go up to 9 strength. PV4 is not really that nicely prepared to go for a lot of strength. He also has only 2 military actions. Pajada probably could use warfare and Saladin to defend, but maybe I could go for an aggression. But as I said, if I would have revealed the tactic, then I wouldn't have drawn this aggression. So sadly I can't do this, but I will get stronger. I will score the culture from Genghis Khan, and then I can take the breakthrough. I also wanted to take the knights. At the moment I don't really need it myself, but it could later on be nice to have this military technology in hand. Also I take it away from Pajada, so that he can't invest into a nice military unit yet. And also it means that one of my 2 opponents won't get knights, and maybe I will be happy to have it in hand when I draw an H2 tactic, or if I maybe want to make a transition into heavy cavalry later on. And then I have still 3 civil actions left. I can't really do anything on my civilization. And I thought about maybe going for the Silk Road, but I didn't like it too much. It could maybe be an option. I have the breakthrough in hand, maybe that could work. But at the end I just took the Rich Land for 3 civil actions. It's of course very expensive to grab a yellow card, but I just have a bunch of civil actions and can't do that much with them. And a rich land with still having to go for farms and mines should do some nice work. Maybe the Silk Road would be the better solution, but yeah, but a rich land also with 2 iron still in the deck could also be very nice. I still kept the aggression in hand, discarded a colonization card for it, because the next turn I can reveal the tactic, and I can also go for one more swordsman maybe. And depending on what PV4 does, it might be that I can then pull the aggression off at the following turn. Pajada then goes through the Silk Road. He has quite a bunch of civil actions, so that should be a nice wonder for him. He also reveals the develops the warfare, increases his population, and then gets out of corruption with building a warrior. Doesn't use Saladin, so that indicates that there are maybe no strength events in, at least none that were played by him. PV4 indeed goes for the printing press, develops the printing press, and just builds 2 printing presses, getting culture production up, getting science production up, preparing for Shakespeare, for Darwin maybe as well. And those printing presses are very cheap with the masonry, so he did make immediately some use out of the masonry. But he invests a lot of population into those printing presses, and as I said, I can go up to quite a lot of strength. He also still hasn't a military technology in hand, still has only 2 military actions, so it's a little bit dangerous. And on my next turn, my plan was to prepare to hopefully punish this. Sadly, I can't see it, so I can't use my politics phase. I can't build a swordsman, reveal the heavy cavalry, go up to 11 strength. I still have the aggression in hand, and I definitely might be PV4 can get 2 more population. Maybe he can go for swordsman or knights, but he has only 2 military actions, so best would maybe be to go for knights and real phalanx, or probably better to go for swordsman and build a swordsman and a fighting band. But that would only put him at 7 strength, so you would already have 2 colonization cards in hand. I definitely could maybe try then to go for an aggression. Then I have again a bunch of civil actions left, and then I can develop the irrigation. I didn't want to spend a lot of civil actions just to take some cards again after I already did this at the last turn. I rather wanted to get something going. And I can, thanks to the rich land, go for 1 upgrade to irrigation for free. And then I have still 2 civil actions left to grab the cultural heritage and the frugality. With the frugality, depending on whether the age will end or not, it's actually very likely that the age will end, so then I can't go for 2 more population at my next turn. If the age should not end, I would be able to do this, but it still will help me quite a lot to get my next, to get 1 population out earlier. And I don't take the iron, but there's still another copy, and I also I don't think it is really worth it to go for it for 2 and 3 in a 3-player game. There are 2 copies of coal. So it also often works very nicely to just maybe build up some science production and then go for coal in H2. And so I was not willing to grab the iron for 2 civil actions here, and rather wanted to have those yellow cards. The cultural heritage might allow me maybe to go for an H2 government earlier, and the frugality will give me 1 more population earlier. I don't draw any cards, but maybe I can go for the aggression at the next turn. Pajada opens the rebellion. That could have been a little bit of a danger, because if I lose the 2 yellow tokens, I would not be prepared for that. But at my next turn I can't see it anyway, and at my next turn I also very likely will go for the bread and circuses, so I thought that it is not really that big of a risk. Then Pajada grabs the iron, has not enough science to go for it immediately, also grabs the swordsman, and then just finishes the Silk Road. He wants to have a military technology in hand. Of course, there would also be some nice yellow cards available, but maybe it would be too dangerous. I'm at 11 strength. Pajada will use Saladin to his turn to make sure that he can defend, but with having the frugality, with potentially going for bread and circuses, maybe even more strength, he needs a way how he can increase his strength, and so he grabs the swordsman instead of those 2 yellow cards. PV4 seats, and one science event is revealed from Confucius, and sadly that gives him just enough science to go for the theocracy, and the theocracy helps him to be able to defend himself. He can now go for 2 warriors, is now at 7 strength, but with 3 military actions, and so he only needs 1 colonization card to defend himself. And with that, I have to question myself if I really want to try to go for an aggression. But at least he is now stuck in this theocracy. He has only 4 civil actions, and on the long run, that also might cause quite some damage. I mean, it will helps him. Definitely helps him now at the moment, and yeah. But on the long run, it might be bad for him to be stuck on 4 civil actions. So maybe it's also not too bad. And also it is H2 now, and using 2 military actions with only having 2 military actions for an aggression could also be very costly. So even if I maybe would get an aggression for sure, there definitely would be a cost to it. And now with PV4 being very likely to defend, I definitely did not want to use my 2 military actions just to try if I can maybe win this aggression. Then H2 starts. I want to go for the bread and circuses. I can increase my population with the frugality. Build 1 bread and circuses, and with my last 2 civil actions I just grab those 2 rich lands. I could grab the monarchy, but I rather want to wait for an H2 government, and with those 2 rich lands I'm very nicely prepared to go for coal. I even have enough science to go for coal, sadly not enough resources at the next turn, but yeah. And maybe also if PV4 doesn't go for this copy of iron, and if the coal is not available, then I could also still go for this iron, go for 2 upgrades immediately, so that definitely also could be a solution. Here I have a very lucky draw. I only draw 2 cards, but I draw the defensive army, which is definitely the best tactic for me that I can draw. So that is definitely very lucky, but of course I was quite happy about it. Pajada seeds and the immigration is revealed. PV4 gets 1 additional worker out, so the theocracy also helped him with that. I mean, he would have gotten a worker anyway, but I would have gotten 1 as well if he wouldn't had theocracy. Pajada grabs the rifleman and goes for 1 upgrade. 2 upgrades, is now at 11 strength. Takes the selective breeding, and now with having additional strength he can use the civil action again from Saladin. Has selective breeding and iron in hand, has already a decent science production with the Silk Road and the Roman roads. So a lot of roads in a civilization. And then he can increase his economy even more with going for iron and selective breeding in the following turns. And with the rifleman he also should be able to defend himself. PV4 grabs the cannons for 2, grabs the iron and grabs the dramas. With the dramas he's probably eyeing at either Bach or Shakespeare, but of course Darwin also could still be an option for him if he wants to go for a culture leader. This turn, first of all, I see the wealthy territory. I'm not that nicely prepared to win the colonies, but I'm the strongest, and I want to see it. I want to have some information about the future event deck. And then another 1 science event is revealed, and there are some interesting cards in the card row. There are, first of all, a lot of strong yellow cards, but there also is the constitutional monarchy, and there is 1 copy of cannons. And I thought that grabbing the cannons here is the most important thing. Of course I could grab a bunch of nice yellow cards, but if the cannons fall down to 2 civil actions for Pajada, I think it's guaranteed that he will take the cannons. Even if the cannons stay on 3, I think he maybe will still take them. And so I felt that I have to grab them. PV4 already grabbed the first copy of cannons. I have drawn the defensive army, so it would be a shame if I now miss out on the cannons after having the chance to grab them. Yeah, so I was willing to grab them for 3 civil actions here, and then I have some civil actions back. I can take the breakthrough, and I also can use the Ridgeland to upgrade 1 more of my farms. And for the next turn I would be prepared to go for coal. I have enough resources and science now, and maybe if there's a government form with the cultural heritage, I could also play the cultural heritage and go for the government form, though I expected that Pajada probably will grab this copy of Con 1. I draw one colonization card and a civil unrest. Pajada seeds and a new deposits are opened, but none of us really has a lot of resource production. Pajada does grab the constitutional monarchy, goes for iron now, upgrades one time, upgrades one of his riflemen, is now at 11 strength, then takes the fission upgrade and a patriotism, is now 2 yellow cards, and of course the patriotism is especially nice together with the Silk Road. Also uses Saladin for strength, he upgraded the warrior to rifleman, so it really shows that there might be some strength events coming. Pajada played 3 out of the following, out of the next 4 events. So yeah, there's definitely to be expected that there are some strength events coming. PV4 has a bunch of resources, can't increase his population, so he has to find a way to invest those resources, and he chooses to go for the Transcontinental Railroad, finishes it. That helps him with his resource production, not that much yet, but he can go for iron at the next turn, or if this copy of coal should be available, or the second copy should be available, he could also go for that, and the Transcontinental Railroad also helps him with his strength. Though after his turn he will be the weakest, so there is yeah, so he is still in danger of getting hit by a strength event. At my turn I see that the civil unrest I'm not one of the 2 weakest, and I really wanted to go for a turn at my next turn where I would be weaker, so it would be nice to potentially already reveal one strength event. And there is indeed one strength event, the border conflict is revealed, and Pajada will gain 3 additional resources, and PV4 will get hit by that. And my plan was first of all to go for coal this turn, and after developing coal I also wanted to go for Nobel. There are a bunch of other leaders, there's Bach, but I don't have any theater technologies, there is only 1 copy of opera left, and I think Nobel could be very nice. Like this I can elect him, I can upgrade one of my mines and upgrade one of my warriors. If there would be no strength event revealed, maybe I would have stick to Genghis Khan to be able to get stronger, but now there's one big strength event out. Of course there could be more strength event, but now that one is out, I really wanted to get additional science from Nobel. I also, even without Nobel, I would have enough science to go for something like Honmon or Republic with the cultural heritage, but I still need a government form. At some point I want to go for cannons, maybe I want to go for some more technology, so I really think the additional science production helps me quite a lot here. But of course now I'm the weakest and I'm in danger of getting hit by a strength event. I draw the spy. Pajada seeds, and there's the call to arms. So this one more strength event, but I definitely, it's not that bad if I'm the weakest or the second weakest. On the other hand, I have now only 3 civil actions at my next turn, so it definitely hurts me a little bit, but it's only 1 civil action more, so it's maybe better than losing the border conflict. Then Pajada goes for more upgrade, uses the fission upgrade for that, goes for the selective breeding, goes for Bach, and then elects Bach, and goes for drama. Wants to go for culture production immediately, which is a little bit interesting, because he could also upgrade one of his farms, then he could increase his population at the next turn, and probably that should have alerted myself more. I thought that he maybe just wants to go for culture reduction, but I think normally it should be better to maybe in this stage of the game still go for the food production first, especially with Bach. He also kinda needs a lot of food production, and Pajada has played a lot of events in, so that is quite an indicator for Reds, but yeah, I was not as alerted as I maybe should have been. PV4 seeds and a pestilence is opened, which hurts definitely a little bit. I have no free population, but Pajada as well also has no free population, so it's probably the best for PV4. PV4 then goes for iron, there is no copy of coal available for him, and that increases resource production up to 7, and with his last civil action he then grabs Shakespeare. He has the dramas in hand, so he also plans to go for quite a bunch of culture production. This turn I maybe make a mistake. I'm not the weakest, so I thought that I maybe want to see it. I also thought that with having the defensive army and with going for cannons maybe relatively soon, I can maybe play a strength event and maybe I want to have more knowledge about the event deck. But as I said, I probably should be alerted because of pajada not increasing his food production. On the other hand, I have only 3 civil actions, and there's are some things that I definitely wanted to do. So yeah, so I think I thought about reds. I did not think that much about that it is that much more likely maybe because of pajada's turn. But I definitely thought about the reds. But yeah, I can't really want to have the strategy because both of my opponents going heavily into culture, or at least preparing to do that. Payada is going for Bach, PB4 is going for Shakespeare, and I think when I don't get a strategy, I am really limited in my option and how I want to play this game, and then I could only increase my population once, but I also could upgrade one of my mines. So at the end, I choose to cede. But there indeed are the reds revealed, and I lose 8 food, and that of course hurts quite a lot. But if when I would not have seeded and would have increased my population, then I would have lost 6 food. So yeah, and I would not upgrade one of my mines. So yeah, maybe at the end it was the correct choice to seed, but of course losing 8 food hurts me quite a lot. Then, as I said, I really want to have the strategy to keep my military options open, especially I have nice tactic, I have the cannons already in hand, so maybe I can go for some pressure, although now that I lost 8 food and also the pestilence hit, and I lost religion to the pestilence. Now that all of this happened, it might not be that easy to go for military because I have not a lot of population, but maybe it could still work out. And then with my last civil action, I thought about either developing the strategy or upgrading one of my mines to coal. When I develop the strategy, I will get stronger, so I know that colony is on top of the deck, but I also wanted to keep some cards in hand, ideally all of the colonization cards in the tactic. But thanks to the library, when I now have 2 military actions, can still keep 3 cards in hand, and so at the end I choose to go for the upgrade this turn. That means that I have to discard the H1, the colonization card. I also will draw 1 card less, but I can still keep those 2 colonization cards, and I can keep the tactic in hand. Then I draw the refugees, so if I want to go for some more military, that is of course a very nice event for me to have. Payada offers me the international trade agreement. He wants to have additional resource production, I get additional food. Yeah, I think I maybe have the better position here. On the other hand, PV4 has Shakespeare, so maybe he doesn't want to give PV4 more food production, as that could really mean a lot of additional culture production potentially. Yeah, but with not having a lot of culture production, I might get a little bit under pressure when both of my opponents go heavily into culture, so I felt a little bit uncomfortable about my situation. In general, I think I would have been very happy. I have strong science production, I have some nice technologies in hand already with my tactic, and I definitely also was not unhappy about my position, but I was a little bit worried that when both of my opponents go very heavily into culture production, that it could leave me in a bad position, or in a position where I'm basically forced to go for military, and I don't know yet if I will draw the necessary wars for that, and if I will have enough wars or enough strength difference so that I can catch up and maybe win the game. So I in general was happy about my civilization, but I felt uncomfortable about both of my opponents planning to go heavily into culture. And no. Then Payada upgrades one of his mines, upgrades one religion to a theater, upgrades one of his farms, can increase his population at the next turn, then he can upgrade it again, has it exactly 4 food, so he has exactly enough to increase his population again at the following turn. We'll get some more population that he can use for Bach, is now already at 10. Culture production has the journalism in hand to even go for more culture production. Maybe he then can upgrade his last lab to theaters, just build journalisms, and so he has definitely the potential to go for a lot of culture production. pv4 seats and a wealthy territory is opened, and I'm able to win this territory. I have 2 colonization cards in hand, so I get it for 1 swordsman. But I have not the most population, so it's even debatable if this is even worth it for me, because now I can't increase my population. I won't have corruption, and I can spend my resources and maybe upgrading the last mine, but with being that low in population, it's, I mean, for 1 swordsman it should still be worth it, but it could also have some disadvantages. pv4 grabs the reserves, elects Shakespeare, upgrades one of his mines, and then uses Shakespeare immediately to develop the dramas. Probably doesn't want to risk that the age will end before his next turn, and then he deletes a warrior to build 1 drama immediately. So that's maybe a little bit risky, but it will take some time until we get the next population out, unless he uses the reserves for that. He probably wants to do this, and then probably can still do this to go for the second pair. And he also probably wants to go for some cultural reduction, because he has of course a nice Shakespeare setup, but he has still only 4 civil actions. He definitely has decent resource production, decent science production, but with only having 4 civil actions, it could get very dangerous for him, and maybe he felt that he maybe has to take a little bit of risk, or at least has to get some culture lead, so that he does not, so that he maybe can afford to lose 1 war, or maybe that he and then when the impacts are revealed has already a little bit of a lead, because with having only 4 civil actions, and with me or with Pajada going for Conman, maybe at some point, for example the next turn, he can go for a revolution, and I also am prepared to develop a government form, and that is then of course 1 big disadvantage for him in H3. I seeded the refugees into the deck, as I thought that I will go for quite some military. And then the vast territories revealed, and I thought that those 3 yellow tokens could help me quite a lot, and so I was willing to bid 2 swordsmen and a colonization card, and I'm able to win it just for that. And this turn I had to question myself, if I want to go for the conman this turn or for the strategy. I definitely want to go for some more military actions. I have to prepare myself to maybe be in a very nice military setup in H3. The thing is, I want to go for conman at the next turn, and I also want to go for cannons this turn or at the next turn, but I can't do this and also go for the strategy, so I thought about going for strategy this turn and for cannons. And it would be quite nice for this turn. I would get stronger, maybe even put already some pressure on. But then at the next turn I would not have enough to go for the conman, and it just didn't feel too great. So I rather choose to go for the conman. And then I can't go for cannons yet, but I can go for cannons at the next turn, and I can build 1 more swordsman, upgrade the last one of my mine, and then play the cultural heritage. Of course I could grab 1 of those yellow cards, maybe even the wave. Maybe I should grab the wave. I'm the weakest, so it would be quite a lot of resources, but I felt that I also have quite a bunch of resources. Of course it would also take the card away from Pajada, so maybe that would be the better decision, take the wave, but I felt that the science is maybe more needed for me than the additional resources. But it's still 6 additional resources, still not bad. And the science also does not allow me, for example, to go for cannons and strategy the next turn. Maybe it will make a difference, but maybe taking the wave is the better solution here. Or maybe even the frugality to get 1 more population out. I draw the vast territory and 2 aggressions. Pajada seats and the national bride is revealed. Of course I stay weaker, but with both of my opponents going very heavily into culture, or I have the knowledge that there is no strength event played by me in the deck, or there is the crime wave, but it's not the worst one, and other events were played by pv4, and I doubted that he put some very bad strength events in the deck. Pajada does go for revolution, so at least he doesn't get a wave. It might of course mean that pv4 gets the wave, but with only having 4 civil actions, it is still a little bit costly to take the wave and play the wave. But probably worth it for him for 1 civil action, depending on what alternatives he has. PV4 seats and the developed territories revealed. I have no colonization cards left, and I also felt that I mean, I would get 2 yellow tokens, but I felt that I need my population now into military. I want to draw a lot of cards, but would also be quite nice. It would allow me to go for strategy and cannons, but without colonization cards, I felt that I don't have a chance to win this territory anyway. With PV4 bidding 6 for the last colony, and at the end, pajada is able to win it for 1 rifleman and 1 colonization card. PV4 grabs the rifleman, develops the rifleman, upgrades 1 time, 2 times, and then disbands 1 warrior to go for the second pair with Shakespeare. Has now even more cultural reduction, skips the wave, but he has a bunch of resource, not the most population, so it's probably the right call to not take the wave, and also skips the breakthrough, but he gets 4 additional culture production and will develop a culture lead now, especially after also having won the national pride. And when we take a look at the overview before age 3 starts, we can see that PV4 at the moment has a little bit of a culture lead. Pajada also is not that much behind. Also both of them have similar culture, but with me being 10 culture production behind, the culture lead of them will get bigger every turn, and the best way for me to win this game, or to at least not be last in this game, is probably to go for wars. So my plan was now to prepare myself for that. This turn I didn't see the vast territory. First of all, I felt that it is not the greatest event for me to be there in the deck. And second of all, there is still the crime wave, and while it is not the biggest strength event, it still is still would be nice to win it instead of losing it. It's still a 6 culture swing, and yeah, and so I rather didn't want to push here. I can increase my population this turn 2 times, can go for cannons. I built 1 cannon, and I also revealed the defensive army. I wanted to be strongest because of the crime wave. Could also think about not revealing the defensive army yet. For example, PV4 for him it is definitely nice knowledge, but on the other hand I have to reveal it at some point, and PV4 might go for cannons anyway, because that also prepares me for quite a lot of H3 tactics, and pajada doesn't have any cannons, so no, I rather wanted to get stronger. Of course I could also get stronger with maybe just building a second cannon. And then I grabbed a breakthrough in the reserves and also a revolutionary idea, so a bunch of nice yellow cards, especially the additional science could be quite nice for me. The next turn I can develop the strategy, so hopefully I can go for more military and still draw enough cards. And yeah, I could think about maybe already building a second cannon. I don't really need the H2 draws that much. On the other hand, it would be nice to draw a nice event that I can play in the deck. I have the vast territory, but at the moment I didn't really wanted to see this into the deck with having no colonization card and with having a decent yellow bank now, and so I choose to rather not build a cannon, especially because with the strategy I will have enough military actions to build this cannon at the next turn anyway. And then I draw the strategic territory. This territory I like quite a lot more, as of course I still have no colonization card in hand, but that might help me to draw the necessary wars that I might need. Pajada grabs the Harvard College and just finishes it, increases population, has now fixed his last weakness, his science production, and yeah, in general I think he has quite a nice setup, has 7 civil and 5 military actions, has a big culture reduction with Bach, and yeah, and has the cavalryman in hand. When he gets the rockets, he will be prepared for H3 tactics, and no, so and also with the Silk Road and the Harvard College, he has now a nice combination. You can just take yellow cards and play them for bonus with 1 even, and that also might help him quite a lot with potentially defending himself, or with at least being a threat or threatening to defend if the fitting yellow card comes out. And then pajada builds his 3rd rifleman. PV4 destroys religion, develops the cannons. You just saw that I revealed a defensive army, builds 1 cannon, and then takes the revolutionary idea for 2 civil actions. The additional science definitely could be very useful for him. Maybe he can go for an H3 government, and it definitely would be nice for him to get away to get more civil actions. This turn I choose to seed a strategic territory into the deck. I am the strongest, so the crime wave would be very nice to be opened. It is the civil unrest, so the other card that I seeded, and yeah, and also the strategic territory, as I said, could help me with drawing the wars that I need. Then I can develop the strategy, can increase my population. I build one cannon. I also built one swordsman. That could be a mistake, because I'm the strongest anyway, and while the defensive army is nice, it could be difficult to go for a lot of strength. Just with the defensive army, maybe if I get modern infantry as well, but it could be nice to go for an H3 tactic, and I think I should not commit to the third swordsman already here. If I draw entrenchments, maybe if I draw mechanized army, it could be nice to not have invested into this third swordsman, and I also felt that I don't really need it that much now. So yeah, that might be a mistake. And then I have some civil actions left, and I could just take a bunch of yellow cards, but I have a lot of resources, and I could maybe just invest them still. And so I went for the scientific method, went for 2 upgrades, and grabbed the urban growth. Those 2 yellow cards would not be that great, especially if I don't plan to go for one of those upgrades to scientific method immediately. I mean, I could hope for computers maybe, but I have already a bunch of resources, and there will be Bill Gates, there will be Sid Meier, there will be Steve Jobs, Marie Curie. So I felt having those scientific methods running should be quite nice, and also the science investment should pay off very soon. And I still have quite a bunch of resources available for me. And again, I have a very lucky draw. As I said, my plan was to go for military, and already in my first draw I draw 2 wars. So that's of course very lucky. Now I have the 2 wars and I can plan with them, and I also have the mechanized army, and that could potentially, even after I invested in 1 swordsman, it could still be an idea to make a transition into this tactic to have a higher strength potential. Pajada offers me the military alliance, maybe to intensify or to make it more likely that I will go for a war against PV4, because I basically have 3 additional strength against him, but not against Pajada. But also, as we can see, he maybe offered it to me because he can use the additional strength against PV4 to not be weakest. This turn he goes for a rocket, copies the tactic, so now he is definitely stronger even without a pact. He also upgrades one of his labs to dramas, grabs the efficient upgrade. But now when we take a look at PV4's turn, first of all, PV4 offers a peace treaty to Pajada, but Pajada doesn't want to limit his options and still wants to have the option to go for a war against PV4 if the situation should arise where this is possible. PV4 increases population, grabs the civil service, so that's definitely a nice card for him, getting more civil actions. And with the revolutionary idea, he should have enough science to afford this investment, and it's probably better to go for the civil service than for the democracy, because the democracy would be very costly, and also at some point the heavy phase of the theocracy might be missing, especially if PV4 wants to go for a different leader than Shakespeare. And then he grabs the military theory, goes for one more cannon, and copies the defensive army, and as you can see, now he's at 24 strength, so without a pact, Pajada would be the weakest now. Now he isn't the weakest, so that was probably also a reason why he offered this pact to me. And this time I seed the vast territory into the deck. I still felt not great about seeding it, because I have no colonization card, and getting more population, it could definitely help my opponents to get more population. On one hand, on the other hand, both of my opponents don't have any warrior swordsmen or something like this. Both of them have H2 military units. And if I want to go for wars, then or I want to go for wars, and while the vast territory 2 could definitely help them with the population, it could also be a little bit costly at least, and maybe it prevents them from building the one unit that they need to fulfill a tactic again. So I felt it could still definitely be that it will help one of my opponents, but it could also be that it maybe even will hurt one of them, or at least it comes with a bit of a cost. And I wanted to get a crime wave out of the deck. I wanted to be prepared for the refugees that are in the deck. And yeah. This turn, first of all, I also thought about if I can go for a war already this turn. I can go for one more swordsman, I can go for an upgrade to pro sports, but PV4 can develop the military theory, can go for 2 more riflemen, and pajada with the help of those two, of one of those 2 yellow cards, and I can't really take both of them away. Could go for 1 more rifleman, 1 more rocket, and so both of them are well enough prepared to defend against the war this turn. And yeah, this turn I went for pro sports. With being limited in population, I felt that it is very nice for me, and that my next population that I will get out will be happy. And also I came to the conclusion that staying on defensive army with my limited population will probably not be enough to go for a big war. So I plan to make a transition. I even thought about going for tanks already this turn, maybe somehow preparing to go for war at the next turn, but that didn't really work out that nicely. And I thought that it maybe also is a good idea to not already commit to a tactic, because if I still draw the positional army and the modern arm infantry will be available at the next turn, it could be very nice to not have invested into tanks already, because then I could make use of out of my swordsman. And so I choose to go for the bro spots this turn. That will increase my strength, make it maybe more sure that I will stay the strongest for the refugees. And then I took the tanks and the reserves. It was the close decision between the reserves and the revolutionary idea, because both are cards where I thought I maybe could use either the additional resource or the additional science. First I felt that I maybe need a revolutionary idea more, but I already have 1 revolutionary idea in hand. I have enough science to go for tanks at the next turn and for the air force at the turn after that. And of course, if I draw the modern army and if I also want to go for modern infantry, then the additional science could be very nice. But those H3 units are quite costly, and I felt that at the end the reserves maybe will be more useful to me, and also it is more flexible. I can maybe also use it to get 1 more population out so that I don't have to delete as much. Like this, I don't go for any culture options. I skip the movies, I skip the multimedia. With having drawn the 2 wars already, I felt that I just can go all in into military. I draw the impact of science. That could be a nice impact for me with having 2 scientific method, and the impact of industry also is a decent impact. Pajada seats and the refugees are revealed, and now you can see that the military lines makes a big difference for Pajada and of course also for PV4, as it helped Pajada to not be weakest for the refugees, and PV4 will lose 1 population. That definitely hurts him, and I'm of course very happy to get 1 additional population. That helps me quite a lot. Pajada grabs the revolutionary idea, can play it immediately with the Harvard College, upgrades 1 farm with the efficient upgrade, increases population, grabs the military theory and the patriotism, and also builds 1 more rockets to be at 29 strength. PV4 this time offers the peace treaty to me, and Gandhi is in the card row, so it might definitely be that PV4 goes for Gandhi, but I have 6 military actions, so even if he goes for Gandhi, I could potentially still go for war against him, and I didn't want to shut this option down. And PV4 indeed goes for Gandhi. Could also think about Churchill, because I have 6 military actions. Pajada, if he should go for military theory, has 7 military actions, so Gandhi of course makes it harder for me and for Pajada to go for a war, but but it is definitely still possible for us. So maybe the additional resources and science from Churchill could be the better solution. And maybe then grabbing the tanks, preparing for all H3 tactics. But of course, Gandhi will make it harder. Maybe also was afraid of a war immediately this turn. And then of course Gandhi gives him also more time to prepare himself before he switches to Gandhi. He wants to use Shakespeare's resource 1 time again, goes for 1 more drama, and then he destroys 1 of his labs to build 1 rifleman, go up to 27 strength. And this turn I still can't really go for a war, but I definitely have to prepare myself that I can go for 1 at the next turn, because ideally I want to go for 2 wars and it might already be close that this will be possible. I still was hoping that I will have 2 more turns in H3, but it could also be that I will only get 1 more chance to declare a war, but this turn it was still not possible, and so I played the impact of science. I have a very nice science production, and did not really look like that my opponents will go for a lot of science production, especially when I now go for a lot of military pressure. The prosperity is revealed, so some additional food for all of us. And yeah, this turn I can increase my population 2 times. And with wanting to go for a lot of military, I choose to go for Churchill. He will help me quite a lot with my science and my resources. And I can use him immediately to develop the tanks. My plan was to go for the mechanized army. And I can build 2 tanks, 1 cannon. I can delete 1 swordsman, build 1 more cannon. And then I had a decision to make, because I could already reveal the tactic this turn. There is of course the danger that maybe my opponents go for this tactic as well, but I think this danger is not really that big, because both of them have 3 riflemen, so it would be the transition would be costly. Yeah, so that is probably not the biggest reason, but instead of using my last military action now to reveal the mechanized army, I can also delete 1 of my swordsmen. The reason why I maybe want to reveal it now is that when I don't have air force available at my next turn, then with having the tactic revealed already, I could declare war against Pajada and then go for 3 more units, meaning that I could go for a 3rd mechanized army. And I can't do this when I don't reveal the tactic, but I still choose, after taking the reserves, to rather disband 1 of my swordsmen, because if I go for the 3rd army and don't disband the swordsman now, it would be very costly. I would have to delete 3 things, so that would be costly. And yeah, there are still 2 copies of Air Forces left, so if 1 of those copies of Air Force is available, I could declare a war, build 2 Air Forces and reveal the tactic, which would be quite a lot of strength. And there's also an option where I maybe can go for fundamentalism, though this option only works when the fundamentalism is available for 2 civil actions for me. Then I could go for that and still go for a 3rd army. But I feel like this maybe was a mistake, because if none of those options is available, then it looks really bad for me, and I really need to get my first war going at the next turn. And yeah, so I should prepare myself to be able to go for a war, even if I don't get air forces or fundamentalism. And if that means that I have to delete more stuff, then so it is. So yeah, it is a little bit of a risk and maybe an unnecessary one. So I feel like maybe revealing the mechanized army is the better solution. But of course now I was really hoping for air forces. And there's also no copy of Air Force revealed on Pajada's turn, so that is looking good for me. The inhabited territory is revealed, so in addition to the strategic and vast territory, there's also the inhabited territory in the deck. I only was willing to bid 1 of my swordsmen, and PV4 is able to win it for 1 rifleman. Pajada goes for the military theory, develops the cavalryman, scores a Nobel Prize even, then takes the revolutionary idea and the reserves. And he also builds 1 more rifleman, goes up to 42 strength, so he prepares himself to defend himself. Again, PV4 offers the peace treaty to me, but again I reject, of course. Even though if I want to go for a war at my next turn, it will definitely be against Pajada, but I might have the chance for a second war, and then I maybe could go against PV4. If I should get the Air Force, I will go to quite a lot of strength. I will go up to 84. And then I could maybe declare war against PV4, and I don't even need to build any more units, maybe just 1 more arena, and that should then be a very big war. PV4 goes for the Red Cross, he wants to score some culture from there, and Pajada has now already overtaken PV4 in culture. Even if PV4 gets his production, he will be something like 10 culture behind. And yeah, and he has some food lying around, has the masonry to help him a little bit with the 5 steps, so he chooses to go for the Red Cross, builds 2 riflemen, and then builds 2 stages of the Red Cross. Still has enough food to increase his population at the next turn if necessary. Now it of course was very interesting to see whether there will be one copy of Air Force available, but at least there is the fundamentalism. So if I know a copy of Air Force is available, then the fundamentalism could be an option for me. And as you can see, no Air Force, but as I said, I still want to go for the war, and luckily the fundamentalism is at least available for me, and yeah, I definitely was happy about it. And as I said, I think I should not take this risk and probably just reveal the tactic, even though it means that I have to delete one more thing. And yeah, so I can declare war against pajada. Pajada has some potential. He could have the modern army or the positional army. He also has Silk Road and Harvard College, but I calculated some things out and it didn't look like he could win the war, especially because taking yellow card and playing it also takes some civil actions, so he can't, maybe can't go for that many population then as well, and he definitely can't go for air forces in a lot of population, and he doesn't have enough resource to go for 2 cavalrymen, 2 air forces if he wants to go for air force, because then he has not the civil actions to grab and play yellow card. So that war should definitely work. I can play the reserves, I can destroy 2 things. I wanted to keep all of my resources, because when I keep all of my resources, let's first take a look at a turn. I can play the revolutionary idea, go for fundamentalism, and then with using Churchill I can go for 2 more cannons, 1 more tank, reveal the tactic and go up to 78 strength, so that's quite a bit. And now with having 9 resources left, thanks to not deleting any coal mines, I have at my next turn, if the age should not end, I have 7, 16, and thanks to Churchill 19 resources available. So I have the option to declare war and to go for a fourth army even against pajada, depending on how well he defends himself or how well he prepares for a defense for his next turn after his turn now. And then I either have the option, now with even having 7 military actions, to go for a war against PV4 or for a war against pajada. And I was hoping that now that pajada has to defend himself, he won't take that many cards away from the card row. And with PV4 having only 6 civil actions, I felt that it should be very likely that I will get 1 more turn in H3 and that I will be able to go for 1 more war. Then pajada has indeed a modern army, and with revealing it he also gets weakest, which allows him to take the military build-up and play it for 11 resources. That is of course very, very strong for him. Again, he gains a lot of resources out of that, and then he destroys a bunch of stuff. Goes for 2 cavalrymen, 1 rocket, and also builds 1 stage of the Red Cross of PV4, is now at 64 strength. PV4 seats, and vast territory is revealed now. I didn't want to bid for this. Of course I could bid 1 swordsman, but I felt that this colony does not do enough for me to justify losing 2 culture and giving pajada 2 culture, and potentially also for my next war it would mean that I have less strength, so I didn't want to bid for that, and PV4 is able to win this colony for 1 rifleman. There's still the strategic territory left, and if I want to win a colony, then I'd rather would win the strategic than the vast territory now at this stage of the game. PV4 finishes the Red Cross, scores another 12 culture for it and also 5 culture from the colonies, takes the patriotism, plays the reserves for food to get 1 more population out, and then builds 1 cannon and takes the endowment for the arts. This turn I steal 19 culture from pajada, and you can see that he still has a very big culture lead. So no, I definitely need another war. The age did not end, and the question was against which player I want to go for a war, and I think that answer was very clear, because when we take a look at pajada's turn, he has enough science to go for air force, enough resource to go for 2 air forces, and with that he has even he can go for a lot more strength than I would be able to do, or not a lot more, because I could go for a 4th army if I go for a war against him, but he still would be able to go for more. So I can't go against him, but I can against PV4 instead. and then I can play the reserves for resources and destroy a bunch of mines. One thing that I didn't like about the last turn with deleting another lab is the impact of science. I'm very low in science now, but my hope was that I maybe can fix this at my last turn. This turn I destroy 2 mines, I go for 1 tank, for 1 bro sports, then I have some civil actions left, and the question was if I should take one of the air forces. First of all, it could mean that maybe that PV4 misses out on an air force. So I had to think about how much the Air Force increases his strength potential, and I came to the conclusion that it might help him, maybe it will give him a little bit more strength, but it probably doesn't make the biggest difference, and going for military theory and more units could also be a fine solution. For example, if he stays in defensive army, he's not enough resources to go for 1 rifleman and 2 air forces, but he has enough to go for 3 riflemen. So that would be probably be better. If he has some different tactics, that might change, but the things that I calculated out, it most of the times was not that much more if he goes for air forces. There could of course be the strategic territory, then he has 1 unit less maybe, and then it could make a little bit of a difference, but also then it should not make the biggest difference. And then there was also the question if it maybe could be nice to, for example, leave Air Force on 3 or at least on 2 for pajada. And it definitely could make a difference because pajada, with the strength potential and with having 7 military actions and a patriotism, is even prepared to go for a war for himself now, and he has definitely drawn a lot of cards, as we can see. And yeah. But if the Air Force should stay on 3, which could happen when I take this copy of Air Forces, but no other cards from the civil card, from the card row, then he could only go for 1 Air Force. If the Air Force are on 2 civil actions, he could go for 2 Air Forces. The problem is, even if he goes for 1 Air Force, that would still be quite a lot of strength, and I felt if he goes for war as well, then I'm probably just too much behind. So I felt that I have to maybe have to hope anyway that maybe pajada hasn't drawn a war, and then it doesn't make the biggest difference where the Air Force is in the card row, for him. And also, if I take the Air Force, that also limits my options at the last turn, because I can take the reserves in the urban growth, and the urban growth might help quite a lot with rebuilding this second lab that I might need to win the impact of science. Because sadly pajada has the Silk Road in the Harvard College, so he can't, even if he goes for Air Forces, he can't delete anything that gives him science, so I have to build one to go up to 5 science to have a chance to be best at this impact. Now the big question was, does pajada have a war? He has drawn a lot of cards, so it is definitely likely. And he has a war, the hybrid war, which will cause some problems for him. So the question, it might be his only war, because it also does not really cause PV4 that much problems, the 2 missing happy faces. So it seems like it is the only war that pajada has in hand. He destroys 2 mines and then goes for 2 air forces. But because of the missing happy faces, he will have an uprising, which costs him 11 culture, but of course he will steal a lot of culture with going up to 100 strength with 2 air forces, so that's of course very strong. PV4 seeds, the strategic territory is revealed now. I am of course willing to bid the swordsman, but with no colonization card, PV4 is able to win it. He pays 1 cannon for it, and then he does go for air forces, and now with having send 1 unit away, it is probably better for him to go for air forces, because now he can build 1 air force, 1 more air force, and goes for 1 more outdated army, goes up to 54 strength, but with 2 big wars hitting him, it definitely doesn't look good for him. I steal 38 culture from PV4. PV4 has still more culture production, so you can see that even after 2 wars, both of my opponents still have more culture than me. So both of them were able to develop quite a big culture lead. But I can also go for an armed intervention against PV4. At this point, of course, PV4 probably has lost. So I kinda play against pajada, but pajada probably has very good chances to win. But even against pajada, the 7 additional culture is better than playing the impact of industry. So that's what I did with my politics action. And then I disbanded a bunch of stuff, disbanded 1 cannon instead of swordsman because of the potential impact of variety. It would be 2 culture, impact of competition only 1. So I choose to do this. Of course, I lose some strength, but with having only 1 card in hand, I can't really defend against an aggression from pajada anyway, so I can't do anything about that anyway, and so I just choose to, with my 3 populations, to build 1 religion, 1 lab, and 1 farm. I have the impact of industry in hand, because of that I choose to destroy my last mine. Of course, there could also be the impact of balance, but both of my opponents would score very badly in this impact as well. And like this, I'm at least a little bit better prepared for the impact of agriculture. It could be an impact in there, and maybe with the second lab I also will manage to win the impact of science. And then with my last civil action I can draw the efficient upgrade. Pajada steals 46 culture from PV4, is now at 164, and also goes to aggression, but against me, and sadly destroys my lab, meaning that I won't be able to win the impact of science. Then he disbands 2 units of rifleman, builds 1 religion, builds 1 farm, and that's all that he does. PV4 just plays the endowment, and he can't really do anything else. And when we take a look at the culture before the final impacts, we can see that there are big gaps between all 3 players. It looks very good for pajada, and it also seems like I will end up at the 2nd place. Then the impact of strength is revealed, so that's a good impact for pajada. The impact of variety is indeed in there, so that's 16 for me and for pajada, 14 for PV4. There is the impact of wonders, which is better for pajada and for PV4. I only have 1 wonder. And the impact of agriculture is in there, so building this farm was worth it, but it is relatively equal for all players. And then there's the impact of science, which I am not able to win, at least I'm in the 2nd place. And at the end, pajada is able to win this game, I end up at the 2nd place, and PV4 loses this game. Now, I definitely had 2 very lucky draws in this game. Both of those draws at the beginning of a new age. At the beginning of age 2 I drew the defensive army, which was a very nice draw for me, and at the beginning of age 3 I did draw immediately 2 wars, so those were 2 very lucky moments for me. I still had to make a transition out of the defensive army, because with my limited population I was not really able to go for enough strength, but I also had a mechanized army available, so I was able to go for a lot of strength with the mechanized army. I probably did take too big of a risk with not revealing the mechanized army, just to be able to delete the swordsman. Then I was dependent of the Air Force being revealed or the fundamentalism being available, and while the Air Forces weren't available, at least the fundamentalism was, so I was able to go declare war against pajada, but pajada then was able to prepare himself, and so the 2nd war was against PV4, who had Gandhi, but with me having enough military actions and with pajada having enough military actions as well, we both were able to declare war against PV4. Now, both pajada and PV4 went for a lot of culture production, but pajada had, at the end of age 2, had his 7 civil and 5 military actions, and I think with that he just was able to defend himself quite a lot better. He was able to develop all of those technologies. Of course, he did draw the modern army, but he did draw a lot of cards, so that it was quite likely that he draws 1 tactic. And with still being on 4 civil action when going in age 3, it was more difficult for PV4 to defend himself. He was able to get a civil service, but it also cost some of his science, and he still only was at 6 civil actions, and I think that made it quite a lot harder for him to defend himself. And at the end, he got hit by the 2 wars and lost this game, and Yeah, and I end up at the second place. I expected it kinda that I will end up at the second place because with both opponents going for culture, I felt that I will need some very big wars if I want to win this game. And yeah, but making the second place, I thought will maybe be possible if I get the necessary wars, which I did. And yeah, so I end up at the second place. And yeah, and now after this game is finished, we can also take a look at the standings in the league. At the standings, we can see that there are 3 games finished now. 2 of them you have seen. One in the last game, Tamurus was able to win against DJ Parson and PV4. So at the moment, both me and Timorous are in the lead with 7 points and 2 games finished. But Pajada also has a strong position with 1 game finished and 5 points. DJ Parson has only 1 game finished with a second place, so that doesn't tell that much up to this point. And PV4 didn't have the best start. He lost all of his first 3 games. Definitely had some bad luck in those games, and yeah, so for him it will be very difficult to come back, but it is definitely possible. There were definitely some seasons where a player had a very bad start and then was able to make a comeback. So he definitely should not give up and give his best to be able to stay in the league. And then there will be one more game of the first batch. And I'm quite happy about my start. Of course, no second place now, so no 6 wins possible like in the last season, but of course it was clear for me that that won't happen again. A lot of things had to go right that it was possible. And but with 7 points, I am in a nice position. And so we will see how the next games will go and if I will be able to fight for the first place or if I maybe should orientate myself to avoid the relegation. And with that, I hope it was an interesting game for you and then have a nice time and see you in the next video.